The room was silent, save for the faint hum of an old ceiling fan struggling to push through the sweltering summer heat. 8-year-old Leo Henderson sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, a pencil gripped tightly in his hand. In front of him, a wrinkled notebook was filled edge to edge with numbers, equations, and frantic scribbles that only he could make sense of. His mother, Emily, leaned against the kitchen counter, watching him with equal parts amazement and concern. "Leo, honey, you've been at it for hours. Don't you think it's time for a break?" she called out softly, her voice tinged with worry. Leo didn't respond. His eyes were locked on a problem he'd been solving for the past 20 minutes, a challenge posted by a university professor online, deemed unsolvable by even the brightest minds. But for Leo, it wasn't just about solving it. It was about proving something. "Almost there," he muttered, his lips barely moving. Emily sighed and turned back to the stove, stirring a pot of mac and cheese. She didn't understand half the things Leo worked on, but she knew they were important to him. Ever since he was little, numbers had been his escape, his sanctuary. Suddenly, the sound of the pencil dropping onto the notebook broke the silence. Leo shot to his feet, his face lit up with triumph. "Got it!" he exclaimed, holding the notebook up like a trophy. Emily turned, smiling despite herself. "Let me guess, you solved another one of those impossible math puzzles?" "Not just any puzzle," Leo replied, his voice brimming with excitement. "This one was posted by Dr. Patel, the math professor at MIT. He said no one could solve it." Emily crossed the room and knelt beside him, brushing a lock of dark hair from his forehead. "Well, I'm sure you did great. But don't forget, you're still an 8-year-old who needs to eat dinner and maybe play outside once in a while." Leo grinned sheepishly. Okay. After dinner." Little did they know, the solution Leo had scribbled into his notebook would soon make its way to the internet, sparking a chain reaction that would change his life forever. The next day, the video was everywhere. Someone, a teacher from Leo's school, perhaps, had recorded him solving the problem and posted it online. In less than 24 hours, it had been shared millions of times. News anchors marveled at the 8-year-old math genius, and social media was ablaze with hashtags like #LeoTheGenius and #KidEinstein. And then, the moment that set the entire internet on fire, Elon Musk's tweet. "Impressive work by this young mathematician. Let's see if he's ready for a real challenge. At LeoTheGenius, DM me." Emily froze when she saw it on her phone, her heart racing. "Leo, come here. You need to see this." Leo shuffled over, his eyes widening as he read the tweet. "Elon Musk?" he whispered, barely able to believe it. "Yes, that Elon Musk," Emily confirmed, her voice trembling. Leo's mind raced. This was the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, and everything he dreamed of working on one day. And now, he was being noticed by him. "What do I say?" Leo asked, his usual confidence shaken. Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've always dreamed big, Leo. Now's your chance to show the world what you're capable of. But remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be yourself." Leo nodded, his resolve hardening. He grabbed his tablet, opened Twitter, and typed out a reply that would set the stage for the most important encounter of his life. Challenge accepted. What would you do if someone like Elon Musk noticed your talent? Would you rise to the challenge or shy away? Share your thoughts below. Leo Henderson wasn't always the confident young math was trending on social media. Behind the viral fame and trending hashtags lay a story of resilience, quiet determination, and a journey few would expect from an 8-year-old boy. The first thing anyone noticed about Leo was his silence. He wasn't shy, per se, but he didn't waste words. At school, he was the kid who sat in the back of the class, solving equations in his notebook while the other kids traded Pokemon cards or talked about the latest superhero movies. His teacher, Mr. Collins, had noticed him early on, not because he raised his hand, but because he rarely needed to. "I'm worried about Leo," Mr. Collins had told Emily during a parent-teacher conference when Leo was 6. "He's different. Brilliant, no doubt, but I don't think the other kids understand him. He might feel lonely." Emily knew that all too well. Leo's father had left when he was just a toddler, and it had been the two of them ever since. Emily worked long hours as a nurse, often coming home exhausted, but she always made time to sit with Leo and hear about his day. It was during one of those quiet evenings, when Leo was only 5, that she first realized his gift. "Mom," he had asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor with an old calculator in his lap, "how does infinity work?" Emily blinked, unsure how to answer. "Well, infinity means something goes on forever," she said, trying to keep it simple. "But how can it?" "Everything ends," Leo had replied, his small face scrunched in thought. "Even the biggest numbers." Right. From then on, numbers became Leo's world. While other kids were building Lego towers, Leo was building formulas. By the time he turned 7, he was solving problems from high school math textbooks borrowed from the library. By 8, he had moved on to college-level material. But genius came at a price. At school, Leo was the target of teasing. His classmates didn't understand his passion for numbers, and his quiet demeanor made him an easy target. "Hey, math boy," a boy named Derek had sneered one afternoon, snatching Leo's notebook during recess. "What's this junk? Are you writing secret codes to aliens?" Leo had reached for the notebook, his face red. "Give it back." Derek laughed, holding it above his head. "What are you gonna do? Solve an equation at me?" It wasn't until Mr. Collins intervened that Leo got his notebook back. But the incident left its mark. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, doodling equations in the margins of his homework, his mind replaying Derek's taunts. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Emily had asked, sitting across from him. Leo hesitated, then shrugged. "Why do people think it's weird to like math?" Emily smiled sadly. "Because not everyone understands it the way you do. But that doesn't mean you should stop. Being different isn't bad, Leo. Sometimes, it's what makes you special." Those words stuck with him. The next day, he brought his notebook to school again, daring anyone to take it from him. It was Mr. Collins who first pushed Leo to share his talent with the world. "There's a national math competition coming up," he had said after class one day. "It's for kids older than you, but I think you do great. What do you say?" Leo hesitated. Competing in front of people sounded terrifying, but something about the way Mr. Collins believed in him made him want to try. That competition had been the turning point. Leo didn't just win. He crushed the competition, solving problems faster than the judges could write them. The audience's applause was deafening, and for the first time, Leo felt seen. From there, things spiraled. Local news stations picked up his story. Then came the invitations to online math challenges and live-streamed events. By the time Elon Musk's tweet appeared, Leo had already solved problems that baffled adults twice his age. But through it all, Leo remained grounded. He still shared late-night dinners with Emily at their tiny kitchen table. He still visited the library, where the old librarian, Mrs. Stevens, always set aside math books for him. And he still talked to Mr. Collins after class, showing him the problems he was working on and asking for advice. Now, as he stared at Elon Musk's tweet, Leo felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. Was he really ready for this? Could he step into a world far bigger than anything he'd ever imagined? Emily, sensing his hesitation, leaned down beside him. "You don't have to do this, you know," she said gently. "No matter what the world says, you're already amazing. But if this is what you want, I'll be right here with you." Leo nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. He may have been an 8-year-old genius, but deep down, he was still just a kid searching for his place in the world. As he typed out his reply to Elon Musk, one thought echoed in his mind. This is just the beginning. The following morning, the internet was ablaze with speculation. News outlets and social media debated endlessly about what kind of challenge Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur, could possibly pose to an 8-year-old math genius. Was it a complex equation? A riddle? Or maybe something related to space, given Elon's obsession with interstellar travel? For Leo, the excitement was tempered by nerves. He had barely slept, the weight of Elon's tweet sitting heavy on his young shoulders. Sitting at the breakfast table with a bowl of cereal, he glanced at his mom, who was scrolling through her phone, her expression unreadable. "Mom, what if I can't do it?" he finally asked, his voice small. Emily set her phone down and gave him a reassuring smile. "Leo, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just do your best, like you always do. That's all that matters. Leo nodded, but the knot in his stomach remained. Later that day, as Leo sat in the living room scrolling through his tablet, a notification popped up at Elon Musk has messaged you. His heart raced as he opened the message, his mom hovering behind him. Elon Musk. Hey Leo. Loved your work on the MIT problem. It was brilliant. I've got something for you, if you're up for it. Ready to push your limits? Leo's fingers trembled as he typed back. I'm ready. The response came almost instantly. Elon Musk. Good. Here's the challenge. Design an equation that models a theoretical spacecraft trajectory to Mars, factoring in real-world variables like gravitational slingshots and fuel efficiency. No rush, but the world is watching. Let me know what you come up with. Leo stared at the message, his mouth slightly open. Mars? Spacecraft trajectories? Gravitational slingshots? He had read about those things in books, but this was on an entirely different level. Emily crouched beside him, reading over his shoulder. That's a lot, she admitted, her brow furrowing. Leo swallowed hard. I've read about spacecraft trajectories before, and I know how gravitational slingshots work. But can I really do this? Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. You're the only one who can answer that, sweetheart. But I know one thing. You've never backed down from a challenge before. The news of Elon's challenge broke within hours. The tweet itself was simple but powerful. Elon Musk to Leo Henderson. Let's see what you've got, kid. Hashtag Mars Challenge. The internet went wild. Some were in awe of Elon's faith in an 8-year-old. Others doubted Leo could even come close to completing the task. But one thing was clear. All eyes were now on him. Do you see this? Mr. Collins said, calling Emily that evening. This is monumental, but also a lot of pressure for someone so young. How's Leo holding up? He's nervous, Emily admitted, but he's determined. He's been reading about space missions since he was 6, so maybe this is his moment. That night, Leo sat at his desk, surrounded by stacks of books and notes. He had pulled out everything he'd ever read about space travel, from basic rocket physics to advanced orbital mechanics. His notebook was already filled with half-formed equations and diagrams. As the hours ticked by, he began to lose himself in the challenge. He visualized the spacecraft, the pull of Earth's gravity, the slingshot around the moon, and the long journey to Mars. Slowly, ideas began to take shape. By midnight, he had scribbled down a rough draft of the equation, a model that factored in fuel efficiency, gravitational assists, and orbital transfer times. But something wasn't right. The numbers didn't add up. Frustrated, Leo crumpled the paper and threw it across the room. He dropped his head onto the desk, tears stinging his eyes. I can't do it, he whispered to himself. It's too hard. Emily, hearing the sound of paper hitting the wall, walked in quietly. She sat beside him, brushing his messy hair back. Hey, she said softly. What's wrong? It doesn't work, Leo sniffed. I'm not smart enough for this. Elon Musk made a mistake picking me. Emily cupped his face in her hands. Leo, do you remember what you told me after your first math competition? Leo frowned, trying to remember. You said, I didn't win because I'm the smartest. I won because I didn't give up. Leo blinked at her, the memory flickering in his mind. She was right. Back then, he had been terrified, but he kept going. Do you think Elon Musk ever gave up when people told him his ideas were crazy? Emily continued. No, Leo said quietly. Then don't you give up either. Take a break, get some sleep, and start fresh tomorrow. You'll figure it out. Leo nodded, wiping his eyes. Okay, Mom. I'll try again tomorrow. As he climbed into bed, his mind was still buzzing with possibilities. He had a long way to go, but something deep inside him whispered that he could do this. And as he drifted off to sleep, the faint outline of a new idea began to take shape in his dreams. The next morning, sunlight filtered through Leo's bedroom window, warming the mess of papers, books, and crumpled calculations scattered across the floor. As his eyes fluttered open, fragments of the dream lingered in his mind. Vivid images of spacecraft trajectories and equations floating in the dark expanse of space. For the first time since Elon's challenge, Leo felt a spark of hope. Today's the day, he whispered to himself, sitting up in bed. Downstairs, Emily was making pancakes, humming softly to herself. She looked up as Leo entered the kitchen, his notebook tucked under his arm. "Morning, genius," she said with a smile. "Ready to tackle that big brain of yours again?" Leo nodded, sliding into his seat. "I had an idea last night. I think I was overcomplicating it." Emily set a plate of pancakes in front of him, leaning against the counter. "What's the new plan?" Leo poured syrup over his pancakes, his eyes distant as he spoke. "I was trying to calculate everything all at once. The spacecraft's fuel, gravity from Earth and Mars, the slingshot trajectory. But what if I break it down into smaller steps? Solve one part at a time, and then piece it together?" Emily grinned. "That sounds like a solid strategy. Eat up, and then get to it. You've got this." Fueled by pancakes and determination, Leo dove back into his work. He started with the basics, the velocity needed to escape Earth's gravity. Using equations he'd memorized from physics books, he calculated the spacecraft's speed at launch. Next, he tackled the gravitational slingshot. Leo had always been fascinated by how spacecraft could use the moon or other planets to gain momentum without burning extra fuel. He sketched out the moon's orbit and calculated the optimal angle for the slingshot maneuver. Finally, he focused on Mars. He knew the planet's thin atmosphere and weaker gravity would make landing tricky, so he factored in additional calculations for deceleration and fuel reserves. Piece by piece, the puzzle began to take shape. Hours passed, Leo's notebook filled with diagrams, calculations, and notes. By late afternoon, he had a rough but coherent equation, a mathematical model that charted the spacecraft's journey from Earth to Mars. But was it correct? Leo stared at the final page of his notebook, his heart pounding. He needed confirmation, someone who could verify his work. Without hesitating, he reached for his tablet and called Mr. Collins, his math teacher. "Leo?" Mr. Collins answered, surprised. "What's going on?" "I need your help," Leo said quickly. "I've been working on Elon Musk's challenge, and I think I've got it, but I need you to check my calculations." "Send it over," Mr. Collins said, his tone shifting to seriousness. "I'll take a look right now." Leo scanned the pages of his notebook and emailed them to Mr. Collins. Then, he waited, his legs bouncing nervously as the minutes ticked by. Finally, Mr. Collins called back. "Leo, this is remarkable. Your calculations are solid. The way you've accounted for gravitational assists and fuel efficiency, it's beyond anything I've seen from a student, let alone someone your age." Leo's face lit up. "So it works?" "It works," Mr. Collins confirmed. "You should be proud, Leo. This is groundbreaking." That evening, Leo uploaded his work, attaching it to a message for Elon Musk. "Leo, here's my solution. I broke it into smaller pieces and put it together. I think it works, but let me know if anything needs fixing." Moments later, Elon responded. "Elon Musk, this is incredible, Leo. Your equation holds up even with real-world variables. I'm impressed, seriously impressed. You've got a mind that could rival some of the best engineers at SpaceX." Leo grinned so wide his cheeks hurt. Emily, sitting beside him, squeezed his shoulder. "See? I told you you could do it." But Elon wasn't finished. "Elon Musk, how would you feel about presenting your model in person? We're hosting a SpaceX summit next week, and I'd love for you to show the team what you've created." Leo froze. Presenting his work? In front of Elon Musk and an entire room of engineers? The thought was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. After a long pause, he typed his response. "I'd love to." The week leading up to the SpaceX summit felt like a whirlwind for Leo. His life, once quiet and centered around school and home, had been turned upside down by the media frenzy. Reporters camped outside his house, cameras flashed whenever he stepped outside, and headlines like "Math Prodigy Takes on Elon Musk's Challenge" dominated the news. For Leo, though, none of that mattered. All he could think about was the looming presentation. The day of the summit arrived quickly. Leo woke up before dawn, his stomach a bundle of nerves. Emily helped him pack his notebook, tablet, and a USB drive with his presentation slides. She even insisted on ironing his little suit, which he reluctantly agreed to wear. You look sharp, she said with a smile as they stood in front of the mirror. I feel like I'm going to throw up, Leo muttered. You'll be amazing, Emily assured him, brushing a hand through his hair. They arrived at SpaceX headquarters in Los Angeles just before noon. The building was sleek and futuristic, with the massive Falcon 9 rocket towering in the distance. Inside, engineers bustled about, discussing missions, equations, and blueprints. Leo's eyes widened as he took it all in. Welcome, Leo. He turned to see Elon Musk walking toward him, dressed casually in a black SpaceX t-shirt and jeans. Despite his casual attire, Elon's presence was commanding. It's great to finally meet you in person, Elon said, shaking Leo's hand. And you must be Emily, he added, nodding at her. Emily beamed. Thank you for inviting us. Leo's been working so hard on this. I can tell, Elon said, his eyes twinkling. Come on, let me show you around before your big moment. Elon led Leo and Emily on a private tour of the SpaceX facility. Leo marveled at the giant rocket components, the advanced robotics, and the mission control room with its wall of monitors displaying live feeds and data. This is where the magic happens, Elon said as they entered the testing facility. Every rocket we launch has been through rigorous trials right here. Leo's curiosity got the better of his nerves. How do you make sure the rockets don't fail in space? Elon smiled, clearly impressed by the question. We simulate every possible failure scenario and test until we're confident the design can handle it. It's all about preparation and learning from mistakes. Leo nodded, absorbing every word. Finally, it was time for the presentation. The conference room was packed with SpaceX engineers, scientists, and executives. The buzz of conversation filled the air as everyone speculated about the young genius who had solved Elon Musk's challenge. As Leo stood at the front of the room, his heart pounded in his chest. The projector cast his first slide onto the screen, a model for efficient Mars trajectories by Leo Henderson. Emily gave him an encouraging thumbs up from the front row. Elon leaned against a nearby table, watching intently. Leo took a deep breath and began. At first, I thought this challenge was impossible, Leo admitted, his voice shaking slightly. But I realized that big problems are just a series of smaller problems put together. So, I started with the basics, escaping Earth's gravity. As he explained his calculations, his confidence grew. He used simple analogies to describe complex concepts, making even the seasoned engineers nod in appreciation. He walked them through his equation step by step, showing how he accounted for gravitational assists, fuel efficiency, and landing challenges. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, applause erupted. You're a natural kid, one of the engineers said. Brilliant work, another added. Elon stepped forward, clapping as well. Leo, you've not only impressed me but my entire team. Your approach is innovative and shows a level of insight that's rare even among professionals. Leo's cheeks flushed with pride. As the applause died down, one of the senior engineers raised a hand. Leo, have you thought about applying this model to other missions, like asteroid mining or deep space exploration? Leo blinked, caught off guard. Not yet, but I guess it could work if we adjust for different variables. Elon chuckled. That's the beauty of great ideas. They're adaptable. And Leo, this is a great idea. After the presentation, Elon invited Leo and Emily to dinner with a few members of the SpaceX team. Over plates of pasta and laughter, Elon shared stories of his own challenges as a young innovator. People thought I was crazy when I started SpaceX, Elon said, twirling his fork. But sometimes, the craziest ideas are the ones that change the world. Leo nodded, inspired. As the night wound down, Elon pulled Leo aside. I've got a proposition for you, he said. How would you like to join our Young Innovators program? It's a mentorship program for exceptional minds, and I think you'd be a perfect fit. Leo's jaw dropped. Me? Really? Really, Elon said, smiling. Think about it. No rush. The drive home from SpaceX was unusually quiet. Leo sat in the back seat of the car, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. Emily glanced at him through the rearview mirror, sensing the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. You were incredible today, Leo, she said, breaking the silence. Thanks, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily frowned slightly. What's wrong? I thought you'd be thrilled after how well your presentation went. Leo sighed. I am, but Elon's offer. The mentorship program. It sounds amazing, but what if I'm not ready? What if it's too much? Emily smiled gently. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, but you've already proven you're capable of handling big challenges. The question is, what do you want, Leo? Back at home, Leo couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, flipping through his notebook. His calculations, once a source of pride, now felt like a heavy responsibility. Joining Elon Musk's mentorship program meant leaving the comfort of his small world and stepping into a high-pressure environment full of expectations. Do I really belong there? He muttered to himself. He thought about the SpaceX engineers, their advanced degrees, and years of experience. Could he truly keep up with them? Or would he just be a kid out of his depth? The next morning, Emily found Leo in the kitchen, still in his pajamas, staring blankly at a half-eaten bowl of cereal. You're overthinking it, she said, sitting down across from him. How do you know? Leo asked, his voice filled with doubt. Because you always do, Emily replied with a chuckle. Remember when you were worried about joining the math club? You thought everyone would think you weren't good enough. And what happened? Leo hesitated. I became president of the club. Exactly, Emily said, ruffling his hair. You just need to trust yourself. And if you decide it's not for you, that's okay too. But don't let fear make the decision for you. Later that day, Leo's phone buzzed with a text from Elon Musk. Elon Musk? Hey Leo, just checking in. No pressure, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about the Young Innovators program. Let me know if you have any questions. Leo stared at the message, his heart racing. He typed out a response, deleted it, then typed another. After several failed attempts, he finally wrote, Leo, I'm still thinking about it. It's a big decision, but thank you for the opportunity. Elon replied almost immediately. Elon Musk, take your time. And remember, there's no right or wrong choice. Just follow your instincts. That evening, Leo decided to talk to someone who always gave him perspective, his grandfather, a retired engineer who had worked on early satellite technology. Sitting on the porch with cups of tea, Leo poured out his worries. What if I mess up, Grandpa? What if I'm not smart enough to be in a program like that? His grandfather chuckled. You know, when I started working on satellites, I didn't know half of what the other engineers did. I made mistakes, asked questions, and learned as I went. No one's ever truly ready for great opportunities, Leo. You just have to take them and grow into them. Leo nodded slowly, letting his grandfather's words sink in. The next day, Leo made his decision. He sat at his desk, laptop open, and typed an email to Elon Musk. Subject, joining the Young Innovators program. Dear Mr. Musk, thank you for believing in me and offering this incredible opportunity. After thinking it over, I've decided to join the Young Innovators program. I'm nervous but excited to learn and grow. Best regards, Leo Henderson. An hour later, Elon's reply came in. Elon Musk, welcome aboard, Leo. I can't wait to see what you accomplish. Our first session starts next month. I'll send over the details soon. Congrats, you're going to do amazing things. Leo leaned back in his chair, a mix of relief and excitement washing over him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in days, he felt confident he'd made the right choice. The first day of the Young Innovators program arrived sooner than Leo expected. He stood in front of the towering SpaceX building again, this time clutching a tablet preloaded with program materials Elon Musk himself had sent over. His heart pounded as he stared at the entrance. You ready for this? Emily asked, giving him an encouraging smile. Leo swallowed hard and nodded. I think so. Elon Musk, take your time. And remember, there's no right or wrong choice. Just follow your instincts. That evening, Leo decided to talk to someone who always gave him perspective, his grandfather, a retired engineer who had worked on early satellite technology. Sitting on the porch with cups of tea, Leo poured out his worries. What if I mess up, Grandpa? What if I'm not smart enough to be in a program like that? His grandfather chuckled. You know, when I started working on satellites, I didn't know half of what the other engineers did. I made mistakes, asked questions, and learned as I went. No one's ever truly ready for great opportunities, Leo. You just have to take them and grow into them. Leo nodded slowly, letting his grandfather's words sink in. The next day, Leo made his decision. He sat at his desk, laptop open, and typed an email to Elon Musk. Subject: joining the Young Innovators Program. Dear Mr. Musk, thank you for believing in me and offering this incredible opportunity. After thinking it over, I've decided to join the Young Innovators Program. I'm nervous but excited to learn and grow. Best regards, Leo Henderson. An hour later, Elon's reply came in. Elon Musk, welcome aboard, Leo. I can't wait to see what you accomplish. Our first session starts next month. I'll send over the details soon. Congrats, you're going to do amazing things. Leo leaned back in his chair, a mix of relief and excitement washing over him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in days, he felt confident he'd made the right choice. The first day of the Young Innovators Program arrived sooner than Leo expected. He stood in front of the towering SpaceX building again, this time clutching a tablet preloaded with program materials Elon Musk himself had sent over. His heart pounded as he stared at the entrance. You ready for this? Emily asked, giving him an encouraging smile. Leo swallowed hard and nodded. I think so. Emily crouched down to his level, resting her hands on his shoulders. You're not alone, okay? You earned this. Just be yourself and do what you do best. With a deep breath, Leo stepped through the sliding glass doors, leaving Emily behind in the lobby. Inside, the program director, a tall woman named Dr. Evelyn Harper, greeted him warmly. Welcome, Leo. It's great to have you with us. Are you ready to meet the team? Leo nodded, trying to mask his nervousness. Dr. Harper led him to a sleek conference room where a small group of young prodigies was already seated. They ranged in age from 10 to 15, each of them exuding confidence, or at least pretending to. This is Leo Henderson, Dr. Harper announced. You've probably heard about him recently. He's the youngest member of our program, but I'm sure he'll hold his own just fine. The group murmured polite greetings, though one boy, a lanky 14-year-old with sharp glasses, smirked slightly. We'll see, he muttered under his breath. Leo's stomach tightened, but he ignored the comment and took a seat. The session began with an introduction from Elon Musk himself, who appeared on a massive screen via video conference. Welcome to the Young Innovators Program, Elon said, his enthusiasm contagious. You're here because each of you has shown extraordinary potential. This isn't just about learning. It's about pushing boundaries and solving problems that matter. Let's make history together. The room buzzed with excitement as Elon outlined their first group project, designing a sustainable habitat for Mars. Each member of the group would focus on a specific aspect, from energy systems to water recycling to structural integrity. Leo's assignment? Optimizing energy efficiency using mathematical modeling. After the briefing, the team gathered to brainstorm. Leo quickly realized that everyone else was used to speaking up, debating ideas, and confidently presenting their thoughts. He, on the other hand, felt like a tiny fish in a very large pond. As the others argued about design concepts, Leo sat quietly, sketching equations in his notebook. Got something to share, genius? The boy with the glasses, introduced earlier as Jason, asked with a smirk. Leo hesitated but nodded. I think we can optimize the solar panel output by angling them based on Mars' seasonal shifts. It'll reduce energy loss during dust storms. Jason raised an eyebrow. Not bad. But how do you plan to implement that without overcomplicating the design? Leo flipped his notebook around, showing his calculations. If we use lightweight, modular panels with adjustable motors, it won't add much weight or complexity. The room fell silent as the other kids leaned in to examine his notes. That could work, Jason admitted reluctantly. Dr. Harper, who had been observing from the back of the room, smiled. Excellent thinking, Leo. Collaboration is key here. Keep it up. As the day progressed, Leo began to find his footing. While the others debated big-picture ideas, he quietly worked out solutions to smaller, overlooked problems. His ability to focus on details earned him the nickname, the Solver, by the end of the day. But not everyone was impressed. During a break, Jason cornered him near the snack table. Look, kid, you're smart. I'll give you that, Jason said, his tone condescending. But don't think you can just show up here and steal the spotlight. Some of us have been working toward this for years. Leo felt his cheeks flush. I'm not trying to steal anything. I just want to help. Jason scoffed. We'll see. That night, back at home, Leo recounted the day to Emily. It was intense, he admitted. Most of them are older and way more experienced. And there's this one kid, Jason. I think he hates me. Emily frowned. Sounds like he's intimidated by you. Intimidated? Leo laughed. He's better at everything. He's confident, and I feel like I'm barely keeping up. Emily shook her head. Leo, confidence doesn't always mean competence. The fact that you're there means you belong, whether Jason likes it or not. Just focus on what you do best. The next day, the group reconvened to present their progress. Leo's calculations on the solar panels impressed not only Dr. Harper but also the team's assigned SpaceX mentor, an engineer named Marco. These are fantastic, Leo, Marco said, examining the diagrams. With a few tweaks, this could be the backbone of the entire energy system. Even Jason couldn't hide his begrudging respect. But just as Leo was starting to feel like he belonged, Marco dropped a bombshell. By the way, Elon will be reviewing your group's progress personally next week, Marco said. So make sure everything is airtight. He's known for asking tough questions. The news of Elon Musk reviewing their work sent a ripple of anxiety through the group. Even the most confident members, including Jason, seemed rattled. For Leo, the weight of the upcoming presentation felt almost unbearable. I'm presenting calculations to Elon Musk, he muttered to himself that evening, pacing his bedroom. What if he thinks they're terrible? What if I mess up in front of everyone? Emily walked in, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. Talking to yourself again? Leo flopped onto his bed. I feel like I'm going to explode. How do I convince the smartest guy in the world that I belong here? Emily handed him a mug. By doing what you always do, letting your work speak for itself. You're not here by accident, Leo. Elon saw something in you, and you've already proven you can handle this. Trust your instincts. Her words helped, but only a little. The next morning, the group dove back into their work. Jason was unusually quiet, his usual sharp remarks replaced with a laser-like focus on his part of the project. It was clear even he felt the pressure of impressing Elon Musk. As the others worked on refining their designs, Leo sat with Marco, reviewing the latest iteration of his solar panel calculations. These numbers are solid, Marco said, tapping the screen. But Elon likes innovation. If you can think of a way to push this concept further, something that sets it apart, you'll really grab his attention. Leo frowned. Push it further? Like what? Marco shrugged. That's up to you, kid. Think outside the box. What's something no one else would think of? Leo spent the rest of the day mulling over Marco's advice. By the time the session ended, he still hadn't come up with anything groundbreaking. That night, Leo stayed up late, surrounded by notebooks and his tablet, sketching ideas and running calculations. Frustration built as nothing seemed good enough. What am I missing? He groaned, slamming his pencil down. He glanced at the clock, 2:17 a.m. His eyelids were heavy, but his mind refused to rest. Finally, he decided to take a break, heading out to the backyard for some fresh air. Looking up at the stars, Leo thought about Mars. Its dusty red surface, its thin atmosphere, and the challenges it presented. Suddenly, an idea struck him. What if the solar panels could clean themselves during dust storms? He whispered, excitement bubbling inside him. The next day, Leo presented his idea to Marco. Self-cleaning solar panels? Marco repeated, raising an eyebrow. Leo nodded eagerly. If we integrate electrostatic repulsion technology, the panels could repel dust particles before they build up. It's been used in some satellite applications. I think it could work on Mars, too. Marco's face lit up. That's the kind of innovation I was talking about. Let's run some simulations and see if the numbers hold up. By the end of the day, Leo had a working model of the concept, complete with supporting data. The entire team, including Jason, was impressed. Okay, I'll admit it, Jason said grudgingly. That's actually pretty cool. Leo smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. As the day of the presentation approached, tensions within the group reached a boiling point. While everyone had been working hard, nerves were fraying, and tempers flared during a brainstorming session. "That idea doesn't make sense," Jason snapped at another team member. "We'll look ridiculous if we present that to Elon." "Stop being so critical," the other member shot back. "Not everything has to be perfect." "Enough," Dr. Harper said, stepping in. "You're all under a lot of pressure, but this is a team effort. Remember, Elon isn't just evaluating the project, he's evaluating how well you work together. Don't let your egos get in the way." Jason crossed his arms but stayed silent. The night before the presentation, Leo stayed up reviewing his calculations one last time. He thought about all the obstacles he'd overcome to get to this point. His initial doubts, Jason's rivalry, the overwhelming pressure, and realized something important. "I've already won," he whispered to himself. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I've grown so much." With that thought, he finally allowed himself to sleep. The next day, the group stood nervously in the sleek presentation room, waiting for Elon Musk to arrive. The door opened, and Elon walked in, flanked by Marco and Dr. Harper. "Morning, team," Elon said with a smile. "Let's see what you've got." One by one, the group members presented their sections of the project. Leo's heart raced as his turn approached. Finally, Dr. Harper gestured toward him. "Leo, you're up." Taking a deep breath, Leo stepped forward and began his presentation. Leo's voice trembled slightly as he began explaining his concept. "On Mars, dust storms can last for weeks, significantly reducing the efficiency of solar panels," he said, pointing to a slide that displayed a diagram of his self-cleaning solar panel design. "My solution uses electrostatic repulsion to prevent dust accumulation, ensuring consistent energy output during storms. It's a lightweight and energy-efficient system, inspired by similar technologies used in satellite design." Elon Musk sat at the head of the table, his hands steepled under his chin. His piercing gaze was fixed on Leo, making the boy feel as though he were being X-rayed. The room was utterly silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and Leo's voice. Leo clicked to the next slide, showcasing the calculations that supported his concept. He explained the physics behind the electrostatic technology, the power requirements, and the projected improvement in energy efficiency. When he finished, he took a deep breath and looked up. "That's my idea," he said. For a moment, Elon said nothing. He leaned back in his chair, studying the diagram on the screen. The silence stretched on, and Leo felt his palms grow sweaty. Finally, Elon spoke. "Interesting." The single word sent a wave of relief through Leo, but he quickly realized it wasn't over. "How did you account for the variability in dust particle sizes on Mars?" Elon asked. Leo's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't considered that. I didn't," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Elon nodded, his expression unreadable. "It's a good idea, but it needs refinement. Dust on Mars is highly adhesive because of its electrostatic properties. Your system might work for larger particles, but the finer dust could still cling to the panels. That's something you'll need to address." Leo's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. He felt like he'd failed. But then, to his surprise, Elon smiled. "Don't feel bad, kid. Most people don't even think about this stuff, let alone come up with a solution. Your concept shows a lot of promise. Keep working on it." The room broke into applause, and Leo felt a rush of pride and relief. After the presentation, Elon stayed to give feedback to the group. He praised their creativity and teamwork, but also emphasized the importance of continuous improvement. "Even the best ideas are rarely perfect on the first try," Elon said. "Innovation is about iteration, testing, failing, and refining until you get it right. That's what I expect from all of you." As the session ended, Elon approached Leo. "You've got potential," he said, his tone serious. "Keep thinking big. And don't be afraid to fail. It's how you learn." Leo nodded, his heart soaring. Outside the conference room, the group gathered to debrief. Even Jason seemed impressed. "Not bad, kid," Jason said, clapping Leo on the shoulder. "You might actually belong here after all." Leo grinned. "Thanks, I think." That evening, Leo and Emily celebrated with ice cream. You presented to Elon Musk and didn't faint, Emily teased. That's a win in my book. Leo laughed. It was terrifying, but I think I'm starting to get the hang of this. And he liked my idea, even though it wasn't perfect. Emily nodded. That's because he sees the potential in you, just like I do. You're not just a math genius, Leo. You're a problem solver. As Leo lay in bed that night, he replayed Elon's words in his mind. Think big. Don't be afraid to fail. For the first time, he felt like he truly belonged, not just in the program, but in a world of innovation and possibility. But deep down, he also knew this was just the beginning. The following morning, Leo was still riding the high of his presentation to Elon Musk. His idea had been well received, and he felt more confident than ever about his place in the program. But that sense of relief was short-lived. As he entered the lab, Marco was already there, looking unusually serious. Good morning, Leo, Marco said, his voice tight. I need to talk to you. Leo's heart skipped a beat. What's going on? Marco gestured for him to sit. Elon wants to see you. He's got a new challenge for you, just for you. Leo's stomach churned. A challenge? What kind of challenge? You're going to have to figure that out yourself. Elon doesn't want anyone helping you on this one. Marco's voice was tinged with a hint of concern. Leo nodded, trying to hide his growing anxiety. Okay, when do I meet him? In an hour. I'll walk you over. The short walk to Elon's office felt like an eternity. Leo's mind raced with possibilities. What could this challenge be? And why did it have to be solo? When they arrived, Elon was standing by a large whiteboard, scribbling something furiously. Leo, come in, Elon said without looking up. I've got a little test for you. Leo swallowed hard. A test? Yes. A solo project, Elon explained, finally turning to face him. I've been thinking about Mars again, and I've come up with an idea that I want you to work on. It's a little different from what you've done so far, but I think you're ready for it. Leo's palms began to sweat. He could feel the weight of Elon's expectations pressing down on him. All right, Elon continued, here's the challenge. I want you to design a prototype for a new type of habitat module for Mars. It needs to be self-sustaining, energy efficient, and capable of adapting to the planet's extreme conditions. You'll need to factor in everything: temperature control, oxygen production, waste recycling, you name it. And it has to be affordable. I don't want any fancy, untested materials. I want something that could be built today with existing technology. Leo blinked, trying to process the information. All of that? Elon nodded. Yes. And you'll have 3 days to come up with a working concept. After that, you'll present it to me and the rest of the team. No pressure. Leo's mind was racing. This wasn't just a simple design challenge. It was a massive, multifaceted project that required him to think about everything: biology, engineering, even architecture. I can do it, Leo said, though the words didn't feel convincing. I know you can, Elon replied, his voice unexpectedly reassuring. But remember, no help from anyone else. This is your project, and I want to see how you think when you're left to your own devices. As Leo left Elon's office, his head was spinning. He'd been given the opportunity of a lifetime, but it felt more like a trap than a reward. He had no one to lean on, no teammates to brainstorm with, just him and the vast unknown of Martian habitat design. I don't even know where to start, Leo muttered to himself as he walked back to the lab. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from Emily. Good luck, Leo. I know you'll crush it. You've got this. Leo smiled briefly but quickly wiped it away. He needed to focus. The next few hours were a blur of sketches, calculations, and research. Leo pored over everything he could find on Mars's atmosphere, soil composition, and potential energy sources. He designed a habitat that could be built using a combination of 3D printing and locally sourced materials, cutting down on the need for imported resources. He also came up with a way to generate oxygen using the planet's abundant carbon dioxide and power the entire habitat using solar energy. By the time evening came, Leo was exhausted but satisfied with his progress. He had created a rough blueprint, but he knew it wasn't enough. The next day, he began refining the design, focusing on the details: how the habitat's walls would insulate against the cold, how the waste recycling system would work, and how to ensure that the habitat could be easily expanded as the colony grew. 2 days later, Leo stood in front of his finished prototype, a virtual model that displayed all the key features of his habitat. He hadn't slept much, but he felt a strange sense of pride. When the time came for his presentation, Leo entered the room with his model displayed on a large screen. Elon, Marco, and the rest of the team were seated around the table, awaiting his pitch. Taking a deep breath, Leo began his presentation. The Mars habitat I've designed is based on the principle of sustainability, he explained. We're not just building a shelter, we're building a system that can support human life for an extended period with minimal input from Earth. The core of the habitat is a self-sustaining system that uses solar energy, local resources, and a closed-loop environmental system. Leo walked them through each aspect of his design, explaining how the habitat would function as a home, a laboratory, and a resource center. He highlighted the energy systems, waste recycling processes, and emergency protocols, emphasizing the adaptability of the design. When he finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Elon spoke. Impressive. You've covered every aspect of the challenge: energy, waste, habitat expansion, even the psychological well-being of the people living there. But, he paused, his eyes narrowing, you've overlooked one thing. Leo's stomach dropped. What's that? You haven't accounted for the psychological impact of isolation. Living on Mars will be incredibly lonely and stressful. The habitat needs to have a social aspect, a way for people to connect, even if they're millions of miles from Earth. Leo stared at him, stunned. He hadn't thought about that. He had been so focused on the technical aspects of the habitat that he'd forgotten the most important part: the people. Leo sat in the lab, staring at his computer screen, lost in thought. He had just finished his presentation to Elon and the rest of the team, and the words kept echoing in his mind. You haven't accounted for the psychological impact of isolation. How could he have missed that? It was the most important part of the whole design, and he had completely overlooked it. He had been so focused on the technical aspects, solar panels, oxygen production, waste recycling, that he forgot the emotional needs of the people who would live in the habitat. This isn't just about survival, Leo thought, his fingers tapping nervously on the desk. It's about creating a place where people can thrive. They need to feel connected to each other, even if they're millions of miles away from Earth. He glanced at the clock on the wall. There were only 24 hours left before he had to present his revised design. Panic crept in. Could he fix it in time? Could he come up with a solution that would truly meet Elon's expectations? Leo, you okay? Leo looked up to see Emily standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. I'm fine, Leo said, though his voice betrayed his anxiety. Just thinking. I can tell, she replied, stepping into the room and sitting down beside him. What's going on? Leo sighed. I missed something in my design. Elon said I didn't account for the psychological impact of isolation. People on Mars are going to be cut off from everything: Earth, family, friends, and they're going to need a way to stay connected. Emily nodded. That's a big oversight, Leo, but you can fix it. You're a genius. Just think about what people need to feel less isolated. Leo looked at her, his eyes widening. You're right. I've been thinking about physical needs, not emotional ones. What if I design a communal space within the habitat? A place where people can gather, share meals, have conversations. A place where they can connect with each other. Okay, Leo said, his voice more confident than he felt. I'll redesign the energy allocation system to prioritize essential functions: oxygen production, temperature regulation, etc. The virtual reality stations will run on a separate, low-energy circuit that draws power only when other systems are stable. I'll also integrate energy storage to ensure there's no risk of running out of power during a solar storm or other disruptions. Elon nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. That's the kind of thinking I like to see. After the presentation, the team gathered to discuss the design. Leo stayed back, his heart still racing. He had done it. He had come up with a solution that balanced both the technical and human needs of the Mars habitat. Emily came over and patted him on the back. Told you you'd crush it. Leo smiled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Yeah, but I couldn't have done it without your help. You were right about the virtual reality part. As the day ended, Leo couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. He had faced a monumental challenge and come out on top. He had designed something that not only met Elon Musk's standards, but also addressed the fundamental needs of human beings living on Mars. And yet, deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more obstacles to overcome. But for now, he allowed himself to bask in the victory. The days following Leo's successful presentation to Elon Musk were a blur of activity. He had spent countless hours refining the Mars habitat design, tweaking every detail to perfection. The team was impressed, and Leo had finally begun to feel like he was truly a part of the program. But as he sat at his desk, reflecting on the progress he had made, an unexpected email notification caught his attention. The subject line simply read, "A new opportunity awaits." Leo frowned. It was a message from someone he didn't recognize. He hesitated for a moment before opening it. "Dear Leo, I've been following your work closely, and I must say, I'm impressed by your vision and innovation. I believe you're capable of much more than just designing a habitat for Mars. In fact, I think you have the potential to lead the development of the entire Martian colony infrastructure. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a position with my team to oversee the next phase of the project. This will include not just habitat design, but also resource management, construction, and logistical planning. We're aiming for something far bigger than what's currently on the table, and I want you to be a part of it. Let me know if you're open to discussing this further. Best regards, Dr. Adrian Blackwell, Director of Space Exploration Initiatives." Leo sat back, stunned. Director of Space Exploration Initiatives? That sounded like one of the top people in the industry. Who was this Dr. Adrian Blackwell, and why was he interested in Leo? His mind raced. This was an incredible opportunity, but it also felt like a huge leap. Was he ready to take on such a massive responsibility? Before he could second-guess himself, he quickly typed a response. "Dear Dr. Blackwell, thank you for your message and for considering me for this incredible opportunity. I am very interested in discussing this further and would be honored to learn more about your vision for the Martian colony. Please let me know a time that works for you. Best regards, Leo." He hit send and leaned back in his chair, trying to calm his racing heart. He had always dreamed of making a real impact on space exploration, but this felt like something out of his reach. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? But deep down, Leo knew this could be the break he had been waiting for. This wasn't just about designing a habitat anymore. This was about shaping the future of human life on Mars. As he stared at the email screen, another thought crossed his mind. If he accepted Dr. Blackwell's offer, it would mean leaving everything he had built with Elon and the team. It was a risk, a big one. But what if this was the challenge he needed to truly grow? Later that day, Leo met with Elon Musk in his office. The conversation had started as a casual update about the habitat design, but Leo couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to talk to Elon about the offer. "Leo, you've really come a long way with this project," Elon said, his tone approving. "Your design has set a new standard for what we're trying to achieve on Mars." "I'm impressed." Leo smiled. "Thank you, Elon. I've learned a lot from working with you." But then, he took a deep breath. "There's something I need to talk to you about." Elon raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." Leo hesitated. This wasn't going to be easy. "I've received an offer to work with Dr. Adrian Blackwell. He's the Director of Space Exploration Initiatives, and he's offering me a position overseeing the entire Martian colony project." Elon leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "That's a big offer, and a big responsibility." "I know," Leo said, feeling the weight of the decision press on him. "I don't want to leave everything we've built here, but this feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Elon was quiet for a moment, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the desk. Finally, he spoke. "Leo, I won't tell you what to do, but I will tell you this. You're ready for something bigger. I've seen you grow, and I've seen the way you think. If you think this is the right move for you, then you should go for it." Leo stared at him, surprised by Elon's reaction. "You're not going to try to convince me to stay?" Elon smiled. "No, I want you to follow your own path. If you think this opportunity will help you grow, then take it. Just make sure you're ready to take on the responsibility that comes with it." Later that evening, Leo sat in his apartment, staring at his phone. The offer was still fresh in his mind, but Elon's words kept echoing. If you think this is the right move for you, then you should go for it. He had never felt so torn. On one hand, the opportunity to work with Dr. Blackwell was an incredible chance to make a real impact. But on the other hand, leaving Elon and the team felt like walking away from everything he had worked for. Finally, Leo made his decision. He wasn't ready to leave just yet. He sent Dr. Blackwell a message, politely declining the offer for now. Dear Dr. Blackwell, thank you again for considering me for this incredible opportunity. After much thought and reflection, I've decided to continue working with Elon and his team for the time being. I believe there is still much I can learn here, and I'm not ready to leave this chapter just yet. Best regards, Leo. He hit send and immediately felt a sense of relief wash over him. For now, he was staying. But the future was still wide open, and Leo knew that opportunities like this wouldn't come around often. Leo had barely settled into his routine after turning down Dr. Blackwell's offer when an unexpected visitor knocked on his door. It was late in the evening, and the lab was quiet, save for the hum of computers and the soft rustle of papers. Leo had just finished reviewing some updated designs for the Mars habitat when the sound of a knock echoed down the hallway. He frowned, glancing at the clock. No one should be dropping by at this hour. Hesitantly, he got up and walked to the door. When he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. Standing on the other side was none other than Elon Musk. Elon? Leo stammered, trying to hide his surprise. I know it's late, but we need to talk, Elon said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Leo stood aside, feeling the tension in the air. What could this be about? His heart rate quickened as Elon walked over to the desk, dropping a folder in front of him. This is a bit unexpected, Leo said, sitting down. What's going on? Elon took a seat across from him, his expression unusually serious. I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. About your decision. Leo froze. You mean my decision to stay with the team? Elon nodded. Yes, and I've come to a realization. Leo's mind raced. He had no idea where this was going. I respect your decision, Elon continued. But after seeing the way you think and the potential you have, I've decided that you might be more valuable to the Mars project than you realize. Leo frowned. I don't understand. What do you mean? Elon leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with intensity. I've been keeping an eye on some developments, things that are much bigger than just the habitat. I can't go into too much detail right now, but let's just say there's a new project on the horizon. One that could fundamentally change the way we approach space exploration, not just on Mars but across the entire solar system. Leo's heart skipped a beat. A new project? Something bigger than Mars? I'm offering you a role in that project, Elon said, his voice low but firm. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Leo, and I think you're the right person to help lead it. Leo's mind was spinning. This wasn't just a chance to design habitats anymore. It was a chance to influence the future of space exploration. But the scope of the offer was overwhelming. You want me to leave the Mars project? Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Elon replied. I want you to stay, but you'll need to think bigger. The new project will require you to use all the skills you've developed so far, but also to challenge yourself in ways you never imagined. Think about it. You'll be shaping humanity's future in space. Leo sat back, his mind racing with possibilities. A role in a project that could change everything? Could he handle it? Was he ready to step up to that level of responsibility? Elon stood up, looking down at Leo. Take your time, but I need an answer soon. This isn't something I can put off for long. If you accept, you'll be joining the cutting edge of space innovation. Leo stared at the folder on the desk. It was filled with documents that could potentially hold the key to the future of space exploration. The weight of Elon's words hung in the air, heavy with significance. I'll think about it, Leo said, his voice a mixture of awe and uncertainty. But this is a lot to take in. I know it is, Elon said, his tone softening. But I believe in you. And I think this is your chance to make a real impact. With that, Elon turned and walked toward the door, pausing just before leaving. You have what it takes, Leo. Don't let fear hold you back. And with that, he was gone, leaving Leo alone with the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions and uncertainty. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. He had turned down one opportunity, but now another had appeared. One that was even bigger, more challenging, and more uncertain. As he walked through the halls of the lab, Leo overheard bits and pieces of conversations from his colleagues. Some were talking about new breakthroughs in the Mars mission. Others were discussing potential new projects. It seemed that Elon's offer was part of something much larger than he had initially realized. He needed to make a decision. But what if he chose the wrong path? What if he wasn't ready for such a monumental responsibility? Leo stood in front of his window, looking out at the city below. He could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. But there was one thing he knew for sure. This was his chance to make a real difference. The following day, Leo made his way to Elon's office. His mind was made up. Elon looked up as Leo entered, a knowing look in his eyes. "I've thought it over," Leo said, his voice steady. "And I'm in. I'm ready to take on the new project." Elon smiled. "I knew you'd make the right choice. Welcome aboard." As Leo left the office, he couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement mixed with nerves. This was it. He was about to embark on a journey that would define his legacy in space exploration. But as he walked toward the elevator, something nagged at the back of his mind. Elon had said that the project was bigger than Mars. What did that really mean? Leo had no idea, but one thing was certain. The adventure of a lifetime was just beginning. Leo sat in the sleek, high-rise conference room with a panoramic view of the city below. The meeting had just started, and he could feel the buzz of excitement running through him, but there was also a tension in the air. He had just signed the agreement to join Elon's new project, but he still had no clear idea of what he was getting into. Elon entered the room, his usual confidence radiating as he took his seat at the head of the table. There were a few other faces in the room, some unfamiliar, others who were key players in the space program. Leo was familiar with most of them from various presentations and meetings, but none of them seemed to acknowledge him yet. The gravity of the situation was starting to settle in. "Welcome, Leo," Elon said, giving him a brief nod. "We're glad to have you on board for this new venture. I know you're eager to get started, but I think it's time for you to understand exactly what you're signing up for." Leo's stomach clenched at Elon's words. "What do you mean, exactly?" Elon stood and turned to the large screen at the front of the room. The lights dimmed, and the screen flickered to life, displaying a holographic image of Earth from space. Leo's eyes widened. The image zoomed in, showing the swirling clouds over the planet, the continents, the vast oceans. And then, the image shifted. It was no longer Earth. The scene transitioned smoothly to a large, metallic structure in the distance, floating in space. "Elon?" Leo asked, unable to keep the disbelief from his voice. "This," Elon said, his voice low and serious, "is the project I've been preparing for. This is not just about Mars. It's about humanity's next step, the next frontier. The structure you're looking at is the Genesis Station." Leo blinked, his heart racing. Genesis Station? The name alone sent shivers down his spine. Was this a new space station? Genesis Station is a fully self-sustaining space habitat, designed not just for short-term exploration, but for long-term habitation. This is our launch pad for human expansion beyond the solar system. Our plan is to create a space station that can house thousands of people, facilitate mining operations, and serve as a base for interstellar travel. Leo's mouth went dry. Interstellar travel? You're talking about leaving our solar system? Elon nodded, his expression unwavering. Yes, we're talking about sending humans to other star systems. The Genesis Station will serve as the launching point for humanity's first deep space missions. This is not just a new chapter in space exploration. It's a completely new era for humanity. The weight of Elon's words hit Leo like a freight train. Interstellar travel. The idea of traveling beyond the stars had always been a distant dream, something for science fiction novels. But now, it seemed like it was becoming a reality. "This is bigger than anything I imagined," Leo said, almost to himself. "Much bigger," Elon agreed. "And that's why we need you, Leo. Your designs, your vision. They're critical to the success of Genesis. We need someone who understands not just how to build for Mars, but how to build for the future of humanity. You'll be responsible for everything, from habitat construction to long-term sustainability to creating infrastructure that will support entire colonies in space. Leo felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought he was joining a project about Mars. But now he understood that this was far more than that. This was about creating a new home for humanity beyond Earth, in the vast unknown of space. And it would be his job to design and oversee every aspect of it. I don't know what to say, Leo murmured, his mind racing. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it was also more responsibility than he could have ever imagined. Elon gave him a small smile. You don't have to say anything yet, Leo, but know this. Everything you've done up until now has been preparation for this. You've proven yourself capable of thinking on a larger scale, and now we need you to think even bigger. The room fell silent as everyone turned to Leo, waiting for his response. Leo looked around at the team gathered here, the best and brightest in the world of space exploration. He felt a sense of awe, but also a deep, sinking pressure. This was no longer just about design and technology. This was about building the future of humanity. All right, Leo said finally, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. I'm in. I'll help make Genesis a reality. There was a murmur of approval from the team, but it didn't bring him much comfort. The weight of what he had just agreed to was overwhelming. There would be no turning back now. As the meeting continued, Leo's mind wandered. He kept picturing the Genesis station, floating in the vast expanse of space. It was like something out of a dream, a vision of a future so grand it seemed impossible. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that this was exactly where he was meant to be. This was his moment. This was the challenge he had been waiting for. But even as Leo focused on the excitement of the opportunity, a nagging thought refused to leave him. How was this going to work? How could anyone build a station capable of housing thousands of people, let alone sending them across the stars? And what if it didn't work? What if the project failed? The stakes were higher than ever before, and the pressure was building. After the meeting, Elon approached Leo privately. I know this is a lot to take in, he said quietly, but we're counting on you. Genesis will change everything, and you'll be the one to lead the charge. Leo nodded, but his mind was still buzzing. I'll do my best, he said. I just need to make sure I'm prepared. This is unlike anything I've ever done before. Elon smiled. I believe in you, Leo. Don't worry, we'll have a team behind you every step of the way. You're not alone in this. But as Leo walked out of the building that evening, the reality of the situation hit him full force. Interstellar travel, a new home for humanity, a future beyond Earth. Could he truly handle such a monumental task? The next few weeks were a whirlwind for Leo. As he dove into the design plans for the Genesis station, he felt an overwhelming mix of excitement and dread. Every day, he worked long hours with a team of engineers, scientists, and space architects, each more brilliant than the last. The project was massive, and its complexity was beyond anything he had ever faced. But there was something else in the air, an undercurrent of urgency. Elon had made it clear that Genesis Station was not just a dream. It was the future of humanity, and it needed to become a reality, soon. Leo sat at his desk, reviewing the latest simulations for the life support systems, trying to work through the technical challenges that seemed to multiply by the day. The project was riddled with potential failure points, and every possible scenario had to be accounted for. Failure wasn't an option. They were building something that would send humans beyond Earth, something that could either be a triumph or a disaster of epic proportions. His mind kept circling back to the same question. Can we really do this? Just as he was about to get lost in his thoughts, a message flashed on his screen. It was from Elon. Meet me in the conference room. We need to discuss something important. Leo's stomach tightened. Whenever Elon called for a meeting, it was never just a casual chat. Something big was happening. In the conference room, Leo found Elon standing in front of a large screen, flanked by the rest of the team. They all looked at Leo with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Elon, what's going on? Leo asked, trying to mask the anxiety in his voice. Elon gave him a look that was both reassuring and unnerving at the same time. We've encountered something we weren't prepared for, and it's critical we address it now before we go any further." Leo's brow furrowed. He had been expecting challenges, engineering issues, logistical hurdles, but this sounded different. He stepped forward, ready for whatever came next. The screen flickered, and a video feed appeared. It was from one of the first tests of the life support system that had been set up on a small-scale prototype of the Genesis station. The footage showed the inside of the prototype, a small pressurized chamber meant to simulate conditions in deep space. Everything appeared normal at first. Monitors blinking, systems humming. But then, the environment began to shift. The oxygen levels fluctuated unexpectedly, and the temperature rose and fell rapidly. It was as though the station's systems were reacting unpredictably, despite extensive simulations and safety checks. "What's happening?" Leo asked, his heart racing as he analyzed the footage. "We don't know," Elon replied, his voice grim. "We've run these tests multiple times, and it always fails in the same way. It's as if something is sabotaging the entire system." Leo's eyes widened. "Sabotaging? Are you saying someone's trying to sabotage the project?" Elon shook his head. "No, not sabotage. This is different. We believe the failure is something systemic, something we didn't anticipate. It's as if the station itself is rejecting our designs." The room fell into stunned silence. Leo could feel the weight of the room pressing down on him, all eyes on him now, as if he alone could fix it. The pressure was almost unbearable. "We've tried everything," Elon continued, "but we need you to dig deeper. We need you to look at this problem from a new perspective. I'm counting on you, Leo." Leo took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of thoughts in his mind. This wasn't just another technical challenge. This was a fundamental issue that could jeopardize the entire project. The future of humanity was hanging in the balance. "I'll look into it," Leo said, his voice steady despite the swirling chaos in his mind. "I'll find out what's going wrong with the systems. We'll figure this out." As Leo left the conference room, his mind was racing. What could be causing this inexplicable failure? He had run every simulation, checked every variable. Yet, something about the station systems was defying logic. He spent the next few days locked in his lab, reworking the designs and running new tests. Each time he thought he had cracked the problem, the system failed again. It was maddening. Then, late one night, as Leo was poring over the blueprints for the life support systems, a thought struck him. Something so simple yet so profound that it almost seemed impossible to believe. He quickly pulled up the code for the prototype's artificial intelligence system. The AI was responsible for monitoring and adjusting the life support systems, reacting to changes in the station's environment and maintaining stability. But what if the AI was interpreting the data incorrectly? What if it was making adjustments based on faulty assumptions? Leo's heart raced as he dug deeper into the AI's code. It took hours to unravel the complex system, but when he finally found the issue, it was glaringly obvious. The AI had been programmed to prioritize stability at all costs, but it was doing so at the expense of the humans who would inhabit the station. It was overcompensating for the slightest fluctuations, creating an unstable environment instead of regulating it. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't a flaw in the design. It was the AI trying too hard to protect the station, at the cost of the people who would live in it. Leo let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had found the problem, but fixing it would be no small task. The next day, Leo rushed into the conference room to report his findings to Elon. He could barely contain his excitement. "Elon, I found the issue with the life support systems," Leo said, almost breathless. "It's the AI. It's been overcompensating to keep the station stable, but in doing so, it's creating an unstable environment for the people inside." Elon listened carefully, his expression focused. "So, the problem is with the AI's programming?" "Exactly," Leo confirmed. "We need to rewrite the AI's algorithms to ensure it prioritizes human well-being over pure stability. It's a delicate balance, but I'm confident we can fix it." Elon nodded slowly, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "This is good news, Leo. You've done something that nobody else could. But we have to move quickly. This delay could push back the entire timeline for the Genesis station." Leo felt a surge of pride, mixed with the heavy weight of responsibility. He had solved the problem, but now the pressure was on to implement the solution before it was too late. Leo sat in front of his computer, his eyes glued to the screen as he reworked the AI's code. He'd spent countless hours testing and tweaking, but there was something nagging at him, an instinct that told him this wasn't over. The AI issue had been the first real breakthrough, but the feeling that something darker was looming wouldn't leave him. He had solved the immediate problem, but was it enough? The team was counting on him to deliver, but Leo knew that with a project as ambitious as Genesis Station, no one could be sure of success until the very end. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to input the new code that would shift the balance in favor of human needs. Yet, as he prepared to finalize the update, a strange alert flashed on his screen. It was a message in a cryptic format, one he didn't recognize. Access denied. Unauthorized request detected. Leo blinked, his heart pounding. This was impossible. He was the project lead, the only one authorized to make changes to the system. And yet, here was a warning, an unauthorized attempt to access the system. The message was brief, but it left no doubt in his mind. Someone was trying to manipulate the Genesis Station's AI from the inside. He quickly checked the security logs, his breath catching as the data unfolded. The breach had originated from within the very team that Elon had assembled. It wasn't an external attack. It was someone in the building, someone he trusted. "Elon," Leo whispered, grabbing his phone and dialing his boss's number with trembling fingers. When Elon answered, his voice was calm but strained, as though he had already been made aware of the situation. "Leo, I know. I just got the alert too. We have a serious problem." "Who did this?" Leo asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "How did they get access?" Elon's voice was cold, and for the first time, Leo could hear the gravity of the situation in his tone. "We don't know yet. The logs show that it came from an internal source, likely someone with high-level access. But whoever it is, they're not just trying to break into the system. They're attempting to sabotage it." Leo's mind raced. Sabotage? In a project this important? It seemed unthinkable. But why? What would they gain? Leo questioned. "We don't know, but we need to act fast. Get down to the security office. I'll send someone to meet you there. We need to identify who's responsible before they can do any more damage." Leo arrived at the security office, his thoughts swirling with suspicion. His hands clenched into fists as he considered the possibility of betrayal. Who on the team could be behind this? It felt like a punch to the gut. The team had worked so hard, and now, someone was undermining everything. He was greeted by Rebecca, a security officer who had been working at the station since the beginning. She looked more serious than usual, and Leo could sense her unease. "I've already started looking through the footage and logs," Rebecca said, her voice low. "But we're not getting anywhere fast. The system was designed to cover up traces of unauthorized access. Whoever did this is good. Too good." Leo leaned over her shoulder, staring at the security monitors. There was nothing. The footage was clear. The logs were meticulously scrubbed clean. It was as if the saboteur had anticipated every move they would make. "We have to figure out who had access to the main systems," Leo said, his mind working quickly. "We'll have to track down everyone who could have been involved in the AI's original programming." Rebecca nodded. "I'll start running a background check on all high-level access staff. It's going to take time, but we'll get there." Back in his office, Leo tried to focus on the task at hand, reprogramming the AI. But his mind kept drifting back to the unknown saboteur. Who could it be? Someone with a deep knowledge of the project, someone with enough technical expertise to infiltrate the system undetected. As the hours passed, Leo began to feel a heavy weight pressing down on him. He was no longer just fighting against technical glitches and programming issues. He was fighting against a shadow, someone who could undo everything they had worked for, someone who had a hidden agenda. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was an encrypted message from Elon. "We have a lead." Leo quickly opened the message, his pulse quickening. "We believe the sabotage is linked to an insider from the team that designed the life support systems," the message read. "We've narrowed it down to a few suspects. Meet me in the lab. We need to discuss next steps." Leo arrived at the lab to find Elon, Rebecca, and a few other key team members gathered around a table, the atmosphere tense. "We've narrowed it down," Elon said, his voice low and controlled. The saboteur is someone who was working directly with the life support systems. We've got 2 suspects. Leo's stomach turned. He had worked closely with both of the suspects, both brilliant engineers, Maya and Chris. But could one of them really be behind the sabotage? How are we going to handle this? Leo asked. Elon gave him a grim look. We have to be careful. Whoever it is has access to critical systems. If they get wind of what we're doing, they could cover their tracks. We need to catch them red-handed, but we don't have much time. Leo felt a surge of determination. They couldn't let this sabotage go any further. The fate of Genesis Station and the future of space exploration depended on it. We'll confront them, Leo said, his voice firm. But we need to be smart about this. If we move too quickly, we risk tipping them off. We'll watch them closely. See who's acting strangely. Leo paced back and forth in the dimly lit lab, his mind racing with possibilities. He had never felt this uncertain before. The sabotage, the betrayal, it was all so unexpected. How could someone from within the team, people he had trusted, be working against them? Rebecca had given him the list of suspects, Maya and Chris. Both were brilliant engineers. Both had access to the life support systems. Both had the skills to cause the kind of damage that had just been done. But the more Leo thought about it, the more a gut feeling gnawed at him, telling him that there was more to this story. Someone had to be pulling the strings. Elon arrived at the lab, his face shadowed with worry. Any progress? He asked, his voice sharp but tinged with the weight of the situation. We've been watching them, but nothing's come up yet, Leo replied, glancing at the monitors where Maya and Chris's activities were being tracked. But I don't know, Elon. Something feels off. Elon nodded, his expression grim. I know. That's why I called this meeting. We need to take a more direct approach. We need to confront them, both of them. Leo looked up, a question in his eyes. What do you mean? Elon's gaze hardened. We've been running surveillance, but it's not enough. It's time to go on the offensive. We confront both Maya and Chris simultaneously. Make them nervous, see how they react. If one of them is guilty, they'll slip up. Leo didn't like it. It felt dangerous, like they were walking into a trap. But what other choice did they have? If they didn't act soon, the sabotage could escalate, and everything they had worked for, everything that had been built, would come crumbling down. The plan was set. Leo, Elon, and Rebecca would confront Maya and Chris separately, putting pressure on both to see who cracked first. They were determined to make this confrontation count. Leo found Maya in the engineering bay, working quietly, her back turned to him as he entered. Her concentration on the data she was analyzing was evident, but Leo knew better than to believe the calm demeanor. If she was guilty, this would be the moment she would falter. Maya, Leo said, his voice low, but authoritative. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his with an unreadable expression. Leo, what's going on? We need to talk, he said, stepping forward, his gaze intense. Something's been going on with Genesis Station. Something's been tampered with. Maya's face remained impassive, but Leo could see the briefest flicker of tension in her eyes. I don't know what you mean, she replied, the words slipping easily from her lips. Leo didn't flinch. You don't, huh? We've been tracking every movement on this station. Your access logs aren't matching up with your work schedule. You've been on systems you shouldn't have access to. There was a long pause. Maya's eyes darkened, and for a moment, Leo thought she might deny it entirely. But instead, she sighed, clearly frustrated. You don't understand. It's not what you think. Leo's heart skipped a beat. He knew she was hiding something. Before he could press further, there was a loud knock on the door. It swung open, and Chris stepped inside, his face tight with suspicion. He glanced at Maya, then at Leo. Is everything okay here? Chris asked, his voice guarded. Leo looked from one to the other, his instincts screaming that something wasn't right. Maya and Chris exchanged a glance, a brief but telling moment. That was all Leo needed. Chris, Maya, we need to talk, Leo said, his voice colder now. There's been a breach. Someone has been accessing the AI systems, and we know it was someone in this room. The atmosphere shifted. Maya's eyes hardened, her posture stiffened, but it was Chris's reaction that caught Leo's attention. Chris's face went pale, his mouth went dry, and he shifted uncomfortably. It was subtle, but it was enough. Elon's already been notified, Leo continued, stepping closer to Chris. We're going to find out who's responsible for this. And right now, both of you are on the list. Maya opened her mouth to protest, but Leo cut her off. Don't. If you're innocent, then help us. If not, you're wasting your time. Chris's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing. I don't have time for this, he snapped, his voice sharp. This is nonsense. Leo held up a hand, silencing him. Then prove it. Let's see the logs for your work. Let's see the data you've been messing with. Maya turned away, her fingers hovering over the console, her jaw clenched tightly. Chris looked like he was about to explode. The tension between them was palpable, but it was the silence that spoke the loudest. Leo's instincts were right. Something wasn't adding up. Before Leo could say anything else, the door to the lab burst open again. It was Rebecca, looking as though she had just run through the hallways, her face flushed with panic. We've got a problem, she gasped, holding up her tablet. The breach, it's escalating. Whoever's behind this just activated a lockdown sequence. We're trapped in here. The room was suddenly too quiet, too still. The words, lockdown sequence activated, hovered in the air, a dark cloud that seemed to crush the very breath from everyone in the lab. Leo looked at Rebecca, her eyes wide with shock. Maya and Chris exchanged uneasy glances. The tension in the room was suffocating. How bad is it? Leo asked, his voice tight, as he stepped closer to Rebecca and the tablet in her hands. Bad, she replied, her fingers flying over the screen as she worked to assess the damage. All access to the control rooms is locked down. Security systems are on high alert. If we don't act quickly, the entire station could be sealed off, and we'll be trapped here with no way to stop the sabotage. Leo's heart pounded. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what they were doing. The saboteur wasn't just trying to damage the AI, they were trying to sabotage the entire mission. A lockdown at this scale was a bold move, but it was clear now that this wasn't just about access to systems or files. This was about control, and they had it. Someone inside knows exactly how the system works. Elon's voice cut through the tension. He had stepped forward, his face set in grim determination. We're running out of time. We need to find out who's responsible now. Leo turned back to Maya and Chris. The time for subtlety was over. It was clear now that one of them, if not both, was involved. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. But could they trust anyone? I don't know what's happening, Maya said, her voice shaking, her usual composure slipping. I didn't activate the lockdown. I swear. Leo's gaze shifted to Chris. He hadn't said a word since Rebecca's arrival. Chris's face was pale, his jaw set in a hard line. His eyes darted nervously from Leo to Maya, then back to the tablet in Rebecca's hands. He looked guilty, and more than a little defensive. You're the one with the clearance for these systems, Leo said, keeping his voice steady but firm. What are you hiding, Chris? Chris's eyes flickered for a moment before he crossed his arms. I told you, I didn't do anything. This is ridiculous. Leo didn't miss the way Chris's voice wavered. There was a crack in his facade, something that betrayed his calm exterior. Elon, Leo said, turning to his boss. We need to get into the mainframe. Whoever's responsible must be leaving a trace. We can't just sit here waiting. Agreed, Elon replied. But we don't have much time. We need to figure out who is manipulating the system. The team moved quickly, making their way to the central control room. The hum of the station's machinery was deafening as they passed through the hallways, each of them on edge. The artificial lighting above flickered intermittently, and the air felt thick with anticipation. Inside the control room, Leo went straight to the console, his fingers flying over the keys. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him. The AI's code was still running smoothly for now, but the lockdown sequence was like a ticking time bomb. Whoever was behind it had the entire station on lockdown, and if they didn't stop them soon, they'd be too late. Rebecca stood beside him, typing furiously to break through the layers of security. I'm getting close, she muttered, her eyes scanning the rapidly changing lines of code. Just a few more seconds, and I can disable the lockdown. Leo's gaze moved between the screens, his mind racing. He had no idea who the saboteur was, but the pieces were slowly starting to fall into place. The breach had to be linked to someone with high-level clearance, someone who knew the system like the back of their hand. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed from the main console, followed by an error message flashing across the screen. Error detected. Unauthorized access attempt. The screen read. Leo froze. His stomach dropped. This was it. They had caught the saboteur. He turned to the others, but before he could speak, Chris stepped forward, his expression unreadable. What's going on? Why are we getting an error? Rebecca turned to him with a sharp look. Because someone just tried to bypass security and lock us in here. Who's been accessing the system, Chris? Chris's face went an unnatural shade of pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was trapped, caught in the act. Elon, Leo said quietly, I think we have our saboteur. Chris's eyes darted between Leo and Elon, his face twitching with fear. No, he stammered. You don't understand. I didn't. Shut up, Chris, Maya interrupted, her voice cracking. She stepped back, her hands raised in shock. How could you? We trusted you. Chris swallowed hard. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his hands trembled at his sides. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said, his voice breaking. I never thought it would escalate like this. Leo's chest tightened with anger. You sabotaged the entire mission. You put all of us in danger. Chris's gaze dropped to the floor. I didn't want to. I was just trying to buy time. I thought if I slowed things down, I could fix it. Fix what? Elon asked, his voice dangerously low. What were you trying to fix, Chris? Chris hesitated, clearly struggling with the weight of his confession. Then, he finally muttered, I was trying to get control of the AI. There were issues with the way things were going. I thought if I could stop the project, I could take over the system and reset everything. Leo's mind raced. This wasn't just about sabotage, it was about power. Chris had been trying to control the AI for his own purposes, using the lockdown as a way to seize the project and remake it to his vision. It was madness. The room was eerily silent. The only sound was the hum of the station's machinery, still functioning as normal despite the chaos unfolding within its walls. Leo stood rigid, his mind spinning with the revelation that Chris had been trying to take control of the entire AI system. But that wasn't the only thing troubling him. There was something more, something that didn't add up. Chris was trembling, his eyes darting around as if looking for a way out. But there was no escape now. The truth was out in the open. Or was it? I didn't want this, Chris repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought if I could control the system, I could fix everything. Elon remained silent, his face a mask of calm, though his eyes burned with barely contained anger. He approached Chris slowly, each step deliberate, as if trying to decide whether or not this man still had a place in the mission. Leo turned to Rebecca, his mind racing. There's something more going on here, he said, his voice barely audible. Chris wasn't working alone. This feels planned. Rebecca looked at him, her expression troubled. You think someone else was involved? I'm sure of it, Leo replied, nodding grimly. Chris may have been the one to initiate the sabotage, but there's someone else pulling the strings. Someone who knew exactly what to do to exploit the weaknesses in our systems. Just then, an alert flashed across one of the control panels. A new security breach was detected, this one even more severe than the previous one. Leo's heart skipped a beat. Elon, we need to check this out, Leo said urgently, pointing to the screen. This could be the other saboteur. Elon's eyes hardened. Right. Let's move. The team quickly made their way to the central command center. As they walked, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was as if the entire station was aware of their every move, like they were being watched. But by who? When they reached the command center, the atmosphere was tense. The security breach wasn't just a small glitch, it was a full-scale attack. Someone had gained access to the core systems again, and this time, they were trying to disable the entire station. Elon, look at this, Rebecca said, pointing to the screen. Whoever this is, they're bypassing all of our defenses. Leo leaned over her shoulder, scanning the data. It didn't make sense. The person behind this knew every security protocol, every vulnerability. This wasn't an amateur. This was someone who had been inside the system long enough to understand it completely. I think it's time to stop playing games, Leo muttered. We need to find out who's pulling the strings, and fast. Meanwhile, Chris had been detained in a separate room, the weight of his betrayal sinking in. He hadn't said much since his confession. He looked like a man who had been stripped of everything. His pride, his dignity, and now, his place in the mission. But Leo wasn't ready to let him off the hook just yet. He and Elon stood across from Chris, their eyes fixed on him. I need answers, Leo said, his tone cold. You didn't work alone. Who else is involved? Chris hesitated. His fingers twitched nervously, but he didn't speak. Leo could see the fear in his eyes, the fear of what might happen if he gave up the names of his accomplices. But there was one thing Leo knew for sure. Chris wasn't the mastermind. Elon, do you have any idea who this could be? Leo asked, turning to his boss. Elon's expression was unreadable. I've been thinking about it. Whoever this is, they're skilled. It's someone who's been inside the system long enough to know how to exploit our weaknesses. But there's one more thing. What's that? Leo asked, his voice tight with impatience. There's someone on the inside who has access to everything, the kind of access that goes beyond security clearance. I think we've been looking in the wrong direction this whole time, Elon replied, his voice low. Leo felt his stomach drop. Are you saying there's someone even higher up than us? Elon's eyes narrowed. Someone who has been watching our every move. Someone who knew exactly when to strike. Back in the control center, Rebecca had managed to isolate the source of the attack. The coordinates matched a location within the station that was restricted, accessible only to those with the highest clearance. Leo's heart skipped a beat. Elon, I think we've been played, Leo said, his voice tense. This isn't just sabotage. This is a coordinated effort. Suddenly, the room went dark. The screens went black, the lights flickering, and a low rumble filled the air. Elon, Rebecca cried out. The power's going down. We've lost control. The station systems were failing faster than they could respond. The lockdown wasn't just a precaution. It was a full-scale shutdown. The saboteur was trying to take control completely, and they were succeeding. Leo's mind raced. Whoever's behind this, they're going for the core systems. If they get to the mainframe, they'll have full control of everything. Before he could react, a voice echoed through the darkened room. You shouldn't have come this far. Leo froze. It was a voice he hadn't heard before. It was calm, calculated, yet filled with malice. Who are you? Elon demanded, his voice loud in the silence. The voice chuckled, low and menacing. The real question, Mr. Musk, is not who I am. It's whether you'll be able to stop me before it's too late. The voice echoed again, sharper this time, cutting through the stillness like a blade. Leo's heart raced. Every instinct screamed that they were in more danger than they had ever imagined. Whoever this was, they had planned for everything. They had anticipated every move. Who are you? Elon repeated, his voice steady despite the tension. The reply came, colder than ever. You'll know soon enough. But first, let's see how far you'll go to try to stop me. The lights flickered again, and the hum of the station's machinery died down, replaced by a deep, unsettling silence. The systems weren't just being sabotaged, they were being hijacked, shut down one by one. Rebecca was frantically typing at the control panel, her fingers flying across the keys, but the screen kept glitching, refusing to cooperate. We're losing control, she said, her voice strained. They've locked us out of the mainframe. The shutdown is too advanced. Leo stepped forward, his mind racing. We need to figure out who's behind this, and fast. We don't have much time. Suddenly, the voice returned, this time with a hint of amusement. You think you can stop me? I've been inside your systems for months. I knew every move you'd make. Elon's expression darkened. Who are you? Show yourself. There was a brief pause, and then a new screen flickered to life on the central console. A video feed appeared, grainy and distorted, but clear enough to make out the figure of a man sitting in a dimly lit room, his face obscured by shadows. I've been watching, the voice continued. waiting for the perfect moment to take control. You were never going to win, Musk. Not when you failed to see the true threat right in front of you. Leo's mind raced as the man's words hit him like a punch to the gut. What are you talking about? He demanded. We've done everything you asked. Why are you doing this? The figure on the screen chuckled darkly. You still don't get it, do you? The mission. It's all a game to me. A game I've been playing since the beginning. And now? Now, it's my turn to win. Leo's eyes narrowed. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. The voice, the shadows, the way everything had been set in motion. It all pointed to one thing. This wasn't just about power. It was personal. Elon, do you know who this is? Leo asked, his voice low. Elon's gaze never left the screen. No, but I have a feeling I know who it might be. The man in the shadows finally spoke again, his voice dripping with contempt. You think you're the only one who can play with technology, Musk? You think you're the only one who understands how to control it? I've been using your own systems against you. The realization hit Leo like a freight train. The systems, the breaches, the carefully orchestrated sabotage. It wasn't just about taking control of the AI. It was about manipulating the entire mission, using the weaknesses of their own technology to turn them into pawns. Elon, Leo said, his voice suddenly urgent. This man knows everything. He's been inside our systems. He's been playing us all along. Elon didn't reply immediately, his mind clearly racing. Then, finally, he spoke. I think I know who it is. Back in the main room, the power flickered again. But this time it didn't return. The station was plunging into darkness, and the silence felt deafening. Leo couldn't help but feel like they were being watched from every corner. Elon, Rebecca said, her voice strained as she continued to try and regain control. We're running out of time. The systems are shutting down. The entire station is on the brink of failure. Leo's thoughts were elsewhere, consumed by the voice on the screen. The words kept repeating in his mind. I've been inside your systems for months. This wasn't just a random act of sabotage. The mastermind had been planning this for far longer than they had realized. The figure on the screen leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, the shadows shifted just enough to reveal a part of his face. Leo's heart skipped a beat as the recognition hit him like a bolt of lightning. No, Leo whispered. Elon's voice was barely audible. It can't be. The figure's face was now partially illuminated, and there was no mistaking it. The sharp features, the calculating eyes. It was a man they knew all too well. I thought you'd recognize me, the figure said, his voice dripping with venom. Surprised to see me again, Musk? Leo's blood ran cold. Dr. Erickson. Elon's expression hardened as he processed the revelation. It's impossible. You're supposed to be dead. Dr. Erickson interrupted with a laugh, dark and hollow. Oh, I'm very much alive. And I've been watching, waiting. I've been waiting for the right moment to strike. The revelation hit like a sledgehammer. Dr. Erickson, a former member of the team, someone who was thought to have perished in an accident years ago, was alive and had been orchestrating the chaos from the shadows. Leo's mind spun, the room feeling suddenly smaller, suffocating. He had thought they were dealing with an external threat, but this was a betrayal from within. Dr. Erickson's smirk twisted on the screen, his cold eyes glinting with satisfaction. You must be wondering how it all happened. You think you knew everything, Musk? You think you're in control? But let me tell you something, you're not. Not anymore. Elon's face was hard as stone. How long have you been planning this, Erickson? The figure on the screen chuckled darkly, his voice rich with malice. Planning? Oh, I didn't need to plan. I just needed to wait. You see, the cracks were always there. All I had to do was exploit them. And now, I own everything. Leo felt a chill creep up his spine as the reality set in. Dr. Erickson wasn't just an adversary. He was a mastermind, playing a long game. A game that had been unfolding beneath their noses for years. We've been sabotaged from the inside, Leo said, his voice tight. But why? What do you want? Dr. Erickson's smirk deepened. What do I want? It's simple, really. Power. Control. You built this station, Musk. You built it on the back of your hubris, thinking you could change the world. But you never saw me coming. I've been working behind the scenes, watching, manipulating, until I had everything I needed. Leo's fists clenched. But you're willing to destroy everything, everyone, for power? Elon stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. You've crossed a line, Erickson. This is no longer just about control. This is about destroying everything we've worked for, everything we've sacrificed. Dr. Erickson's eyes glinted with a dangerous gleam. Sacrifices? Musk, you and your team are nothing more than pawns in a game that's much bigger than you. This station, this mission, it's nothing compared to what I've built. And once the station's down, I'll take everything else. Leo's heart raced. What do you mean, everything else? The figure on the screen leaned forward, his voice lowering, growing more sinister. I've already infiltrated your entire network. This is just the beginning. When I'm done, Musk, you won't even recognize your own empire. I will control everything. The technology, the money, the power. You'll be nothing, and I'll be the one pulling the strings. As Dr. Erickson's words hung in the air, Leo felt a wave of frustration and disbelief wash over him. They were so close to completing their mission, so close to achieving something monumental. And now, everything was on the brink of collapse because of one man's hunger for power. Elon, we can't let him win, Leo said, determination hardening in his voice. We have to stop him. Now. Elon nodded, his eyes narrowing with resolve. We will. We'll fight back. But we need to act fast. If he has control of the station's core systems, we won't have long. The screens around them continued to flicker and glitch as Dr. Erickson's influence spread through the network. It was like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a single hand. But Leo wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. We need to get to the core, Leo said, turning to Rebecca. Can we bypass the lockdown and get into the mainframe? Rebecca didn't hesitate. I can try, but it won't be easy. He's already locked us out of all the primary systems. I'll have to find a way around it manually. Do it, Elon urged. We don't have time. They moved quickly, Rebecca leading the way as she hacked into the secondary systems. The station's corridors, once bustling with life and activity, now felt like a maze of cold, lifeless hallways. Every step echoed through the silence, every sound amplified in the growing tension. As they reached the control center, Rebecca immediately began typing furiously, her fingers moving faster than Leo thought possible. The seconds felt like hours as they waited for the screen to flash with progress or failure. I'm in, Rebecca said, her voice low but full of urgency. But it's going to take time to unlock the mainframe. We'll need to get to the control room before Erickson can trigger the final shutdown. Leo glanced at Elon, who gave a curt nod. Let's move. They raced through the darkened corridors, the weight of the mission pressing down on them. Leo's mind was consumed with one thought. They had to stop Erickson. If they didn't, everything they'd worked for would be lost. As they neared the control room, they heard a voice. A loud, distorted voice that crackled through the station's intercom. Running out of time, Musk, Dr. Erickson's voice boomed, his tone mocking. You think you can beat me? You think you can stop me? It's over. The station is mine. The intercom went dead. The words echoed in Leo's mind, driving him forward with even greater urgency. They couldn't let Erickson win. They had to stop him now, before it was too late. Finally, they reached the control room. The door was locked, but Rebecca was already working on it, her hands a blur as she input the override codes. With a soft click, the door slid open. Inside, the core systems flickered on the large central monitor. The countdown to full shutdown had begun. Elon, we don't have much time, Leo said, rushing forward. What now? Elon's expression was steely. We take control back. We override Erickson's commands and shut him down. The air in the control room felt thick, electric with tension. The countdown on the monitor continued to tick down, each second bringing them closer to disaster. Leo's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the rapidly diminishing time. They were on the edge, the fate of everything they had worked for hanging in the balance. Elon, Rebecca, Leo said, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing inside him. We don't have time to waste. We need to regain control of the mainframe now. Rebecca nodded, already at her station, her fingers flying over the console. I've bypassed the initial blocks, but Ericsson's backdoor protocols are deeply embedded. It's not just about overriding commands. It's about tearing apart everything he's set up. The central screen flickered again, and then Dr. Ericsson's smug face filled the monitor once more. This time, there was a triumphant gleam in his eyes. "You're wasting your time," he sneered. "The station is already mine. The systems are locked, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Once I have full control, it's over. You'll all be nothing but footnotes in history." Leo clenched his jaw. He could feel the weight of Ericsson's words, the finality in his voice. It wasn't just about power. Ericsson was playing for something far more dangerous: destruction. "I've been waiting for this moment," Ericsson continued, his tone dripping with satisfaction. "You thought you were in control, Musk, but you were always just one step behind." Elon's gaze never wavered from the screen. "You're wrong, Ericsson. This isn't over. You're not in control. Not yet." Rebecca's voice broke through the tension, urgent and determined. "I found the access point. I can block Ericsson's control over the station's core systems, but it's going to take every ounce of energy we have left." Leo's mind raced. The stakes had never been higher. If they didn't act fast, the station, and everything they had worked for, would be lost. "Elon, if we fail, there's no coming back," Leo said, his voice sharp with urgency. "I know," Elon replied, his face grim, "but we don't have a choice. We fight until the end." Rebecca's hands were moving faster now, her face a mask of concentration. "I'm almost there, just a little more." Suddenly, the lights in the control room dimmed. A low hum reverberated through the walls. Leo looked up, his stomach sinking. "What's happening?" The countdown timer on the screen paused. The entire room seemed to vibrate with a strange, ominous energy. Then, a voice echoed through the intercom system. Dr. Ericsson's voice, twisted with malice. "You think you can stop me?" he hissed. "This is just the beginning. You're out of your league, Musk. I've already initiated the final stage. You're too late." Leo's pulse quickened. They were running out of time, and Ericsson was only growing more powerful. It was now or never. "Rebecca, can you still override his access?" Leo demanded. "I'm almost there. Just a few more seconds," Rebecca said, her hands a blur on the keyboard. The hum of the station's core grew louder, more intense, as if something was about to give. Leo felt the pressure mounting with every passing second. Suddenly, the entire control room plunged into complete darkness. The screens went black, and the hum of the core stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. "What happened?" Elon asked, his voice tight. "I don't know," Rebecca answered, her voice tense with fear. "The core just went offline. It's like everything's been shut down." The silence dragged on, unbearable. Then, a moment later, the power returned. But this time, the screens displayed a new message, a countdown timer that read midnight. The station was locked in a final, irreversible shutdown. Rebecca let out a breathless laugh, but it was laced with frustration. "He's locked us out for good." Leo's mind raced. They couldn't let Ericsson win, not after everything they had been through. "What's our next move?" Elon stepped forward, his eyes narrowing at the screen. "We fight. We take the fight to Ericsson himself. We can't afford to wait any longer." Suddenly, the doors to the control room slammed shut with a deafening thud. Leo's head whipped toward the sound, and he instinctively reached for the emergency override. But before he could act, the control panel flickered again, and a new message appeared. This one from Dr. Ericsson. "Welcome to the endgame," the message read, his voice seeping through the intercom once more. "It's over, Musk. You should have known better than to challenge me. You and your little team are done." Leo's fists clenched, but he refused to back down. "We're not finished yet. We still have one last card to play. Elon, we need to get to the backup control room," Rebecca said urgently. "If we can bypass the lockdown there, we might have a chance at regaining control." Without waiting for a response, she turned and bolted for the door. Elon and Leo exchanged a determined look, then followed her out. The corridors were colder now, the air thick with tension as they moved deeper into the station. Every step felt heavier, as if the very walls were closing in on them. As they reached the secondary control room, they saw the final countdown timer ticking away, now almost completely depleted. Time was running out. Elon, we have seconds left, Leo said, panic creeping into his voice. What do we do? Elon's expression was steady. We use everything we have left. We push through this together. Rebecca was already working on the console, her fingers flying across the keys as she tried to access the backup system. The screen flickered, displaying a new countdown. 10, 9, 8. Elon grabbed Leo's shoulder. We're not losing this. Not now. The seconds felt like hours as the countdown ticked away relentlessly, each number echoing like a drumbeat in Leo's ears. 10, 9, 8. He couldn't breathe. The weight of everything they had fought for pressed down on him like an iron vice. There was no turning back now. Elon, do you think we can still stop him? Leo asked, his voice barely a whisper over the increasing hum of the station systems. Elon's face was unreadable. He stared at the countdown, his eyes steely with determination. We have to. There's no other choice. Rebecca's fingers danced across the console in front of them, sweat beading on her forehead. Her brow furrowed with concentration, but the panic in her eyes was unmistakable. She had been working non-stop for hours, and now, this was the final test. Everything hinged on her ability to bypass Dr. Erickson's encryption. Almost there, she muttered, her voice strained. I just need a few more seconds. But this system is like nothing I've seen before. It's too complex. Leo clenched his fists, anxiety clawing at his insides. We're running out of time, Rebecca. The countdown reached 5. The air in the room seemed to crackle with energy, the intensity rising to a near unbearable level. Rebecca's hands paused for just a fraction of a second, as if she were rethinking her next move. Then, with a sharp inhale, she punched a command into the system. The screen flashed once, twice, and then went completely black. No! Rebecca shouted, slamming her fist against the console. It's locked us out again. Elon's face turned cold as he turned toward her. We're not finished yet. Before Rebecca could respond, the intercom crackled to life, its static harsh against the silence. Well, Dr. Erickson's voice sneered through the speakers, cold and mocking. I must say, I'm impressed. You're fighting till the very end. Too bad it won't matter. Leo's hands balled into fists. He couldn't let Erickson win. Not after everything they'd been through. Not after the lives that hung in the balance. Dr. Erickson, Elon called out, his voice low and controlled. This isn't over. You've underestimated us for the last time. Oh, I don't think so, Musk, Erickson replied, his voice dripping with satisfaction. You've played right into my hands. You're too late. The system's mine. The station is mine. And now, you and your team are nothing more than pawns in my game. The countdown reached 1. The lights above flickered ominously. Then, without warning, the station's systems ground to a halt, the hum of machinery cutting out entirely. The entire facility seemed to shudder. What happened? Rebecca gasped, her voice panicked. The display screens blinked back to life, showing a new message. System locked. Shutdown initiated. Elon's gaze hardened. Erickson's done it. He's triggered the full system shutdown. Leo felt his stomach drop. Everything was falling apart. They were out of time. They had failed. Rebecca's eyes darted to the console once more. Wait, I found something, a backdoor. It's risky, but we might still be able to override the shutdown. Elon's heart raced as he locked eyes with her. How risky? Rebecca took a deep breath. It could cause a total system crash. But if I don't do this, Erickson wins. We'll lose everything. The stakes couldn't be higher. Leo knew that if they didn't act now, it was over. He nodded, his voice resolute. Do it. Rebecca's fingers hovered over the keys, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Every second counted. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, then went out entirely. The entire station was plunged into darkness. A loud clank echoed through the walls. Then, the emergency lights kicked on, casting an eerie, dim glow across the room. The countdown timer, now frozen at midnight, remained on the screen, mocking them. Then, the doors to the control room slammed shut with a deafening sound. They were trapped. Elon, Leo said urgently, we need to get out of here. Now. Elon's face was grim as he moved toward the door, testing it. It's locked. Ericsson's locked us in. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life again, and Dr. Ericsson's voice rang out, full of glee. Welcome to your final hour, Musk. You're trapped. The system is mine. I've won. Elon's grip on the door tightened. Not yet, Ericsson. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered out, and the room went dark again. A low hum filled the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. Then came a sound, a distant whirring noise, low at first, but growing louder with every passing second. Elon, Leo said in a whisper, what is that? Before Elon could answer, the door to the control room blasted open with an explosion of force, sending them all stumbling backward. Smoke and debris filled the air, and Leo's heart raced in his chest as he struggled to regain his footing. Through the smoke, a figure emerged. It was Dr. Ericsson. With a sinister smile, he stepped into the control room, his hands raised in mock triumph. You didn't think I would let you escape, did you? Elon's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward, fists clenched. You won't get away with this. Ericsson chuckled, a cold, cruel laugh that sent chills down Leo's spine. It's already too late. I've already won. The air in the control room was thick with tension as Dr. Ericsson stood before them, a smirk plastered across his face. The smoke had cleared, but the ominous hum of the station's power systems filled the room, almost drowning out the sound of their own breathing. The moment of reckoning had arrived. You still don't get it, do you, Musk? Ericsson's voice was dripping with mockery. The game is over. I'm in control now. Everything you've done, every move you've made, has led me here. And now, I'm going to finish what I started. Leo's heart hammered in his chest. His mind raced, trying to find a solution, but it was like a cloud of hopelessness had descended over them. How could they possibly overcome this? Rebecca was the first to break the silence. You think we're just going to give up? She asked, her voice shaking with both fear and defiance. We're not done yet. Ericsson's eyes narrowed. You think you still have a chance? The countdown is over. The system is locked. There's no escape. I've already triggered the shutdown. Elon stepped forward, his gaze unyielding. You may have won this round, Ericsson, but you've underestimated us. We've fought our way this far, and we're not going down without a fight. Ericsson's laugh echoed through the room. Fight? With what? You're trapped. The door's locked. The system's mine. Your little rebellion is finished. For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of Ericsson's words sinking in. Leo looked at Elon, and there was a spark in his eyes. It was subtle, but unmistakable. There was still something they hadn't tried. Rebecca, Elon said urgently, can you override the door's lock? Rebecca turned to the console, her fingers flying over the keys in a blur of movement. I'm trying, but the system is so complex. Ericsson's put in layers of security. Is there any way to bypass it? Leo asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Rebecca's hands froze for a moment as she scanned the codes. Then, with a sharp exhale, she said, there is a backdoor, but it's extremely risky. It could trigger an alarm, alerting Ericsson to everything we're doing. It's a gamble. Do it, Elon said, his voice firm. We don't have any other choice. Leo watched as Rebecca's fingers hesitated above the keys. The tension was unbearable. They were literally fighting for their lives now. One wrong move could mean the end of everything. Without another word, Rebecca pressed the sequence of keys that would either save them or doom them. The seconds seemed to stretch on endlessly, every moment a heartbeat closer to disaster. Then, just as the air seemed to grow impossibly thick with anticipation, the door to the control room slid open with a soft whoosh, revealing the corridor beyond. For a fleeting moment, relief washed over Leo. But it was short-lived. Impossible! Ericsson roared, his voice seething with fury. He lunged toward the control console, but before he could get any closer, Elon stepped in his path, blocking the way. You think you've won, Ericsson? But this isn't over, Elon said, his tone cold and resolute. Erickson snarled, his eyes wild with rage. You're nothing but a thorn in my side, Musk. You always have been. His hand shot out, grabbing for the nearest weapon, an energy pulse gun that had been resting on the control panel. Leo's instincts kicked in. Move, he shouted, shoving Rebecca out of the way just as Erickson fired. The blast narrowly missed, singeing the wall behind them. The room erupted into chaos. Elon, we need to move now, Leo shouted, his heart pounding as he grabbed Rebecca's arm, pulling her toward the open door. We're not done yet. Elon turned, his jaw set. Don't think this is over, Erickson. We're taking this fight to you, and we'll stop you, whatever it takes. The three of them bolted into the corridor, adrenaline surging through their veins as they sprinted down the dimly lit hall. The alarms blared overhead, red lights flashing in every direction. Where do we go now? Rebecca panted, her voice tinged with panic. Leo glanced around, his mind working quickly. They couldn't let Erickson corner them. They had to find a way to stop the shutdown and get control back, fast. There's a central command station a few levels down, Elon said, his voice grim. If we can make it there, we might be able to bypass the shutdown and override Erickson's control. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Rebecca looked at Elon, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. And if we don't make it? We'll make it, Leo said firmly. We have to. The trio raced through the corridors, dodging security drones and making sharp turns at every intersection. Time was running out, and the further they went, the more desperate their situation became. The station systems were failing all around them, and they could feel the pressure mounting as the shutdown neared its full effect. Finally, they reached the command station. Elon wasted no time, rushing to the central console and immediately beginning to input commands. Elon, hurry, Rebecca urged, her voice frantic. Leo stood guard, watching their backs as Elon worked his magic on the system. We don't have much time, he said, glancing nervously at the doors behind them. A few tense moments later, Elon let out a triumphant shout. Done. I've bypassed Erickson's control. The system's ours again. But as they breathed a collective sigh of relief, the lights flickered and then went dark. The entire station seemed to groan under the strain, and then the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. Erickson wasn't far behind. Now or never, Leo muttered under his breath. Let's finish this. The hallway was eerily quiet as the trio stood at the command station, hearts pounding in their chests. The lights flickered again, then dimmed entirely, leaving them in a suffocating darkness that seemed to press against their skin. Only the sound of their breathing broke the silence. Leo's eyes darted nervously between the doors, knowing Erickson wasn't far behind. Every second felt like an eternity, and with each passing moment, the walls seemed to close in tighter. Elon, are you sure the system is under our control? Rebecca's voice was shaky, a mix of fear and desperation. Elon didn't turn to look at her, but instead continued to type furiously on the console, his fingers a blur. It's done. We've overridden his control, but it won't last forever. We need to shut him down now, or we risk losing everything. Rebecca's eyes widened as she looked around the darkened space. Then we need a plan, fast. Leo was already thinking ahead. We need to catch him off guard. If he thinks we're cornered, he might make a mistake. We use that against him. Elon nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. Agreed, but we'll need a distraction. Can you rig the backup generators, Rebecca? She hesitated, glancing at the wiring panels. It's possible, but it'll take time, and it's dangerous. Time's up, Leo said, his voice sharp. We don't have the luxury of waiting. The floor beneath their feet seemed to groan in protest, as if the entire station was straining under the weight of their final confrontation. The countdown had begun, but the ticking was no longer just a reminder of time. It was the heartbeat of their impending doom. They moved quickly, Rebecca working on the backup generators while Elon and Leo set up an ambush. The seconds stretched thin as Leo worked to reprogram the station's security drones, trying to turn them into allies instead of enemies. A loud bang echoed from down the hallway. The sound of boots hitting metal floors grew louder, and a cold, malicious voice called out from the shadows. You can't hide forever, Musk. You'll never defeat me. Ericsson's voice was filled with madness, and his words echoed down the corridor like a war cry. Leo's heart pounded, but he kept his face steady. He's close. Stay sharp. The air felt electric, as if the very fabric of the station was charged with the weight of their showdown. Rebecca, her hands trembling slightly, gave one final push to the generators. It's ready, she shouted, a note of urgency in her voice. Good, Elon replied, motioning for them to move. They ducked behind a nearby support column just as Ericsson appeared, his face twisted with rage. He stopped short when he saw the three of them standing there, poised and ready for the fight of their lives. I warned you, Musk, Ericsson sneered, raising his weapon. You should have stayed out of my way. Leo stepped forward, his voice cold and determined. This ends now. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Time, space, even the station's failing systems. Then, in an instant, the world exploded into chaos. Elon fired first, using the last of the station's power to blast Ericsson's weapon out of his hand. The shockwave sent Ericsson stumbling backward, his grip slipping. Now! Leo shouted, and Rebecca hit the switch. The backup generators roared to life, flooding the station with light and cutting off Ericsson's escape route. In the sudden flood of light, Ericsson's face contorted with fury. He reached for his backup weapon, but before he could fire, security drones, now under Leo's control, swarmed around him, pinning him to the floor. You think you've won? Ericsson spat, his breath ragged. You're fools. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Elon stepped forward, his face a mask of grim resolve. We know exactly what we're doing, and it's over. Your reign of terror ends here. Ericsson's eyes flared with a mix of rage and disbelief as the drones restrained him, their mechanical arms holding him immobile. For a moment, it seemed like he might fight back, but the fight drained from him. With a final, defiant sneer, he muttered, You haven't seen the last of me. Actually, we have, Elon said, his voice cold and final. This is where your story ends. As the drones powered down and Ericsson was taken into custody, the oppressive weight that had hung over them for so long seemed to lift. For the first time in what felt like ages, the air felt lighter, like a storm had finally passed. Rebecca exhaled a deep breath, her body sagging with relief. We did it. It's really over. Leo looked at Elon, who gave a subtle nod. Yeah, it's over. But even as they stood there, surrounded by the aftermath of the battle, a sense of quiet contemplation settled over them. The station was still in disrepair, the damage done by Ericsson's schemes lingering in the walls, but it was clear that they had emerged victorious. This victory doesn't change everything, Leo said softly. We still have a long road ahead. Rebecca nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding. But we'll face it together. Elon glanced at both of them, his face serious, but with a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. We always do. What did you think of the final showdown? How do you think Elon, Leo, and Rebecca will handle the aftermath of this battle? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the toughest battles come down to teamwork and trust. This story reminds us that even in our darkest hours, we have the strength to face anything, together.